Today on Locked On Rockies, the Colorado Rockies just have an Arizona Diamondbacks problem.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 15th day of August. The 15th day of August in the year 2025. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where we like to read your comments. I'm actually going to dive into a comment here today that asks about trading Hunter Goodman, and my answer to that immediately is no. We'll also take a look at the Diamondbacks continuing to handle business against the Colorado Rockies. And of course, I want to dive into the schedule a little bit. I want to kind of zoom out a little bit here, because I didn't get to lock in on this game as much, so I don't have a ton of actual game analysis. Some of the stuff that we'll dive into, pros, cons. Diamondbacks continue, and actually a surprising Diamondbacks team after the deadline here. As I want to pull up a tweet real quick before we dive into everything here. But this is from Manny Randawa here. Arizona has won 9 of 13. 9 of 13. Now, granted, Rockies are a big chunk of that since the trade deadline there. So very interesting spot there for the Diamondbacks. As I was sitting there saying, put a fork in them. You know, when you sell as much as you do, when you ship as many parts off as you do, you're not going to be in a good spot. And Arizona said, okay, well, you're still rooting for one of the worst teams in baseball history, so check yourself. And that was on display here in this game one, 8-2 victory for Arizona. Let's dive into all that and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But before we go any further, this episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use the promo code LOCKEDONGolf. That's promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. And so with this game, you know, this is basically the issues here with the Rockies, as we've seen throughout the year. 8 strikeouts for the Rockies offense, and starting pitching inefficient, as we've seen. Unfortunately, Bradley Blaylock continues to go through a little bit of the grind here as he navigates not only Coors Field, but being a young Rockies starter here, as now back at the starts here. Also pitched against Arizona there, and they roughed him up again. So Arizona is certainly not fooled by anything that Blaylock was throwing out there here in the last appearance. Before this one, back on the 9th of August, 4 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, a home run, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And you compare that to the game one here, 3 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 7 earned runs, 4 walks, and 2 home runs. That is the recipe for disaster. I mean, there's just no way around it. If you are walking multiple people, if you are allowing more than 2 walks a game, if you are allowing 4 walks, if you are giving people extra opportunities, especially a team that's very familiar and not when it comes to the NL West, these teams don't roll into Coors Field and they're not unfamiliar with it. They're not in a position where they're sitting there and saying kind of, oh, what's going on here? We're not used to this. Rolling into Coors Field and doing damage is nothing different for these players, especially when you're giving them 4 free passes. That just can't happen, and especially when you're talking about the Rockies getting a couple of home runs in this game. Was it 2 home runs or 1 home runs? 1 home run. Let me double check. No, 2 home runs. Farmer and Doyle. That's the only damage that the Rockies do, tying the Diamondbacks in hits in this one. But here's the big difference, of course. 2 errors for the Rockies, and 4 walks. When you don't play the clean baseball, you get punished. That's just how this league goes. Even with all the changes the Diamondbacks have made, this is still a team, as we mentioned, going 9-13 since the All-Star or since the trade deadline. A team that's been in a position where they can surprise you. Even with all these moves they made, they still have plenty of talent on this roster. And when you give them ample opportunities, when you give them 6 free passes at things, that's a huge problem. And teams like Arizona will continue to take advantage of that against you and continue to do damage against you in those ways. You just can't sit there and expect this team to roll over and just say, oh, we made a bunch of moves at the trade deadline. No, these are still pro ball players. This is still a lineup when you're talking about Ketel Marte. You're talking about Corbin Carroll. You're talking about a lineup here with plenty of high level talent here. Perdomo, 288 batting average. These are all certainly players that Gurriel Jr. here, who has the big day with the 3 RBI. There are plenty of names on this lineup that doesn't matter what the record is. It doesn't matter that they sold. This is still an Arizona Diamondback team that, while they're middling, you're just in a different spot. That's as frustrating. And I guess maybe I'm curious here, and I'd like to get your insight into this too, from the Rockies fans out there. How do you feel about being a middling team? Like obviously being a 500 team, you probably have at least some sort of a shot at the wild card. You're still right there, but now we're kind of seeing, we just saw St. Louis, we're now seeing Arizona, and we've seen the Rockies be a middling team for a good chunk of their career, their history. That's kind of in ways a little bit more frustrating, right? When you're a team that is just flirting with or at 500, you're not really breaking anything down. You're not really excelling. You're not really dominating in any areas, but you're in a situation where you're kind of like, is it all that bad? There's still plenty of things to point at here. If you're Arizona, to say, they're doing some things right. I mean, to win 60 games, it's just kind of crazy. It does go to show, like, even with the expanded playoffs, I mean, you still kind of see and you still kind of learn, like, when and where to punt, right? I mean, but when you're the Diamondbacks here, you're still talking about a 251 team batting average. They got over 1,000 hits, hit over 171 home runs, a team OBP of 326, a team slugging of 441. Seems like the pitching has really been more of the issue here. But again, this is a team that just seems like they have some stuff kind of just going in the right direction behind the scenes, even amidst the struggles here. Like we just mentioned, a team that just made a bunch of moves at the trade deadline, and yet here they are being successful, playing above not only playing above 500, but playing great baseball after the trade deadline here. And doing it against, the Rockies are a factor in this mix, certainly, but you're talking about doing this damage here. They drop a series to San Diego, but sweep the Rockies. They beat they beat the Rangers here, taking a series from the Athletics, bouncing back a little bit here from a bit of a skid, especially against getting swept by Detroit here. But it just seems like this Diamondbacks team at least has a little bit more of that oomph and a little bit more of that fight back in it. But it's just such a weird spot to be for a Major League Baseball team, to be around and at 500. Because in the grand scheme of things, where are Arizona, where is St. Louis going to be when the season ends? Does it really matter to be a middling team around 5? I mean, that's the ultimate thing of having to break through kind of that plateau, that 500, that ceiling of pretty good. And the Diamondbacks obviously made some runs. They've obviously bounced back from being a 100-loss team. They've put themselves in a great spot. They've added and picked up some great talent onto this team. Absolutely. But I do just sit there. That's got to be from the behind the scenes perspective. That's got to be one of the more frustrating spots to be in. If you're a GM, if you're an owner, if you're someone where you can't sit there and just say, "Oh, you're bad," because bad teams are below 500. Bad teams are the Rockies. Bad teams are in these positions where it's not even close. The season's been over for a while. It's kind of frustrating to be in the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals position where you kind of ride the roller coaster, especially at this point in the season where it's just like, Is there an actual claim for the playoffs? And is this team actually good enough to succeed and perform in the playoffs here? I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting thing to see. It's just I don't know. Like, would you feel better about the Rockies if they were just at 500 right now? And obviously be better than where they're at, certainly. But when we're zooming out, when we're thinking that this team's onto something, this core is strong, this team has the potential to do something in the playoffs. Does a middling 500 team in the middle of August, does that make you think it's a dominant force? Or does that make you feel confident as the fan? And maybe it's a weird thing to ask because we're talking about the Rockies here, and oftentimes they're irrelevant by this time of the season rolls around, and by the time the Broncos pick things up, it's time to start focusing on them. But it's just it's fascinating the amount of baseball games you play, and you can still win. Be above 500, still win 70 plus ball games, 80 plus ball games, and 70 is not that impressive. I know that, but you still are above 500. You're still doing these things, but yet, in the end of the day, are you really doing much? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And let's react here, and we'll look ahead to the Diamondbacks. I know we didn't dive into it. I'm not going to lie. Spoiler alert. I didn't tune into a ton of this. It was just kind of I was a little bit busy, so I didn't get to lock in as much on the game as usual. But it's just been kind of interesting to compare the Rockies and Arizona and where they're at and where Arizona's at right now. It's kind of an interesting spot where you don't want to be in the Rockies position, certainly. But do you want to be in the Diamondbacks position? And a lot of these other teams, bubble teams, fringe teams, teams that are kind of in the mix, but not really in the mix, don't really have much going on. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All right, let's talk about a question from the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section and more coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Like maybe you're beating the heat in the summer there, trying to get out there and get out there before it gets too hot as we are in the dog days of summer. Well, guess what? You can get boosted up with a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, getting you with those delicious flavors to start your day, to land your favorite shots. What's the greatest shot you've ever landed in golf? Let me know. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. That's Locked On Golf for 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscriptions or subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk. And Jim K says this team is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it certainly feels like that today, of course, as the Rockies dropping that game from the Diamondbacks after picking up the 2 wins against St. Louis and sitting pretty, it felt like, going here. And then the big old bullies in the National League West. It doesn't matter which one of them. Any of them from the National League West continue to just handle business against the Colorado Rockies and get the job done against them, as we continue to sit well at the bottom of the National League West and the bottom of baseball altogether. But I wanted to read another comment here, and this is from G. Let's see here. G says, okay, and then I'll read another one from TK here. Let's just read all the comments. It's like recent injuries forced the Rockies' hand to make much-needed roster move. They will take some lumps this year as they figure things out. Worst team in baseball this year? Who cares? I see plenty of other teams with horrific losses too. There is a way out of this. It's a long journey from rock bottom. And I've talked about this before. I've said this before. I get zoomed out, grand scheme of things doesn't matter. No, but I don't want the Rockies to be known as the worst team of all time. I don't want that label. And when we're talking about a team that has such a reputation crisis, when you lump that in, when you lump worst team ever, 3 straight 100-loss seasons, 7 straight losing seasons, it is the reputation crisis of the Colorado Rockies continues to snowball. We had all those Blue Jays fans tune in and say, why would anyone sign here? Why would anyone do this? I mean, money is only going to talk so much until this team starts creating a reputation of success, starts creating a reputation of winning, starts creating a reputation of being a serious and impactful baseball team. So to carry the moniker of worst team ever on top of all the other stuff that we've been dealing with since the playoff season, since the Rockies have been quote unquote rebuilding, since the Rockies have gone on this 7-season skid, you can't keep adding these terrible milestones onto your mantle. You can't keep being the team that makes the most mistakes, that has the most issues, that keeps doing things the worst, and think that you're just going to be able to turn it around by draft and develop, turn it around internally. It's just plain and simply not going to work. Eventually, you're going to need to be able to convince people to come and play for your baseball team. Eventually, you're going to need to convince people that it's more than just the money, that you have something going on, that you can get players to come here and do things. The solution to Rockies' pitching problems can't just be draft and develop. You need to start creating some examples and create some examples of success so you can start going to these players, start going after in free agency and saying, this is what we can help you do. This is how we can help you be successful here. And when you carry the moniker of being an embarrassment as a front office, an embarrassment of a team, the worst team ever, no pitcher wants to be here. When you keep just adding on negative things to your reputation, you're just digging a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper hole that you don't want to dig yourself out of by doing the thing that levels the playing field with everybody, which is money. And yes, the Rockies don't have the same access to the same resources, the same revenue piles, and the same ways of making monies as other teams in their division. But it's still so. As a response to that, you need to be creative, and this team is not creative. This team is not analytical. This team doesn't do things differently to help make them be a unique team that draws in talent. So as much as, yes, who cares really? Is it going to change anything drastically? I don't know. But if you continue to let your reputation for the Colorado Rockies be as bad and as poor as it is, the rebuild processes, the bad times, the down times are just going to be longer. Because when you're just labeled and you have the reputation as a bad organization, a bad run organization, not an enjoyable organization, not one that we want to be a part of, you're not going to attract not only free agents on the field, but behind the scenes as well. When you keep firing people that don't even get a year within your organization, when you stonewall things and you only approach it and say, it has to be my way, my philosophy, my approach, and nothing else matters. We can't take outside perspectives. It's not going to work. I put my blinders on. You're in a situation where you just continue to dig the hole deeper and deeper and limit your options for being better. So yes, in the big picture of things, who cares if the Rockies are the worst team? But I care because this team just continues to put itself in worse situation after worse situation after worse situation. And that's frustrating. That's annoying. That doesn't make me want to back and support this team. That doesn't make me want to buy into this team. That doesn't make me want to buy merch. It doesn't make me want to buy season tickets. It doesn't make me want to believe in this team. When you continue to go down the crapper and you continue to have your reputation continues to take hits year after year after year after year, that's a massive, massive, massive problem. So maybe I'm digging too deep into that, and maybe I'm just leaning too far into this, but there is no pride. There is no silver lining. There is no good thing about being known as the worst team in baseball history. There isn't. You're the worst. That means there is no team in the long history of baseball that underperformed, undervalued, underdid everything. Just absolute colossal failure across the board. And the Rockies are associated with far too much failure and inability to get the job done that you don't need this on top of everything else. You just flat out don't. It is one of the worst things that can happen to your organization for an organization that already has a horrible reputation. But at the same time, it is because when you're talking about it's young guys, it's inexperienced guys, they got to go through the lumps. It's going to be, so what if they lose in this? What difference does it make if the Rockies lose ball games and don't avoid this? Because it's reps for the guys. I get that. But you got to look bigger picture, and you got to look at the fact that competitive athletes are not going to want to go and play for a place that is known as being the worst team in baseball history. Just not going to happen. All right. Went a little long there. Let's get to the Hunter Goodman comment and a little quick look at if the Rockies can get those 10 more wins to avoid being the worst team in baseball history. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can link all your accounts to Monarch, and you can spot those subscriptions, those small things, those little fees, those little things that just add up and start eating away at your bottom line. Monarch's going to help you find those. You can cancel them, and you're going to save money every month. Plus, you can review your finance with your partner, whether it be life or business partner, and you can both see budgets, goals, and spending activities all in one place. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off. 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Locked On Rockies here, wrapping things up on this Friday edition of Locked On Rockies here. TK asking, seeing a lot of trade Goodman in the offseason for pitching prospects. Don't trade a young offensive for unknown pitching when you play at Coors. Make him a primary DH. Karros looks like a cornerstone going forward. 20 to 25 home run guys, 275 average with a good batting eye. You don't trade or get rid of a guy that can be the difference maker as a catcher. Catcher is such a difficult position here, and in the Rockies case, yes, you could probably try to strike while the iron's hot. But is trading the young guys, is trading a Hunter Goodman really the example when you're talking about a guy that if he can continue on this path, be someone that's actually becomes more of a better option on behind the dish, a better defensive catcher, and matures as a major league hitter? That's the type of guy you want behind the plate, and a guy that can really help do damage. We have seen the Rockies struggle at catcher. The Rockies have hardly ever really had great success at the catcher position outside of some flashes from Yorvit Torrealba and Willeen Rosario and Chris Iannetta. Chris Iannetta may be the best example there, but think about the Rockies catchers of the past. Elias Diaz, a flash in the pan, certainly, but this is a Rockies team that was starting Jacob Stallings this year. This was a Rockies team that was buying into that. Hunter Goodman is changing the narrative completely, not only about him, but his value to the team. I have some issues with his defensive abilities as a catcher. I wish he'd be able to secure the ball a little bit more and throw out some more guys, frame the ball a little bit more, but that's stuff he can grow on when he's leading the offense. Look at Seattle, for example. This is a prime example of when you can have someone that impacts the game from the catcher position, such a game changer, total game changer for your team. I don't think you trade Hunter Goodman in the offseason whatsoever. I don't think that is I don't necessarily think that that's the right type of move for the Rockies here going forward. And I haven't seen a lot of that buzz. So I'm curious to see where that was coming from as well. Okay. Let's wrap up the show with just a quick little look at the remaining schedule for the Rockies here, the teams at least, and if we can find 10 wins here. So from that, the Rockies now they play. So we got 3 more games against Arizona. You got 4 games against the Dodgers. Then the Pirates come to town. Skeens is in the mix there. Then you have the Astros. You have the Cubs, and you got the Giants. How many wins are you taking there? I think between the Arizona, LA, and Pittsburgh series here, we're talking about 3 more games against Arizona, 4 games against the Dodgers here, and then 3 games against Pittsburgh. So we're talking about 10 more ball games here. I think it's most realistic the Rockies go 3-7 in this time. I can't pick the Rockies to be successful against Arizona, and I can't pick the Rockies to be successful against the Dodgers. Even with the Dodgers struggles, even with the Diamondbacks trading all their players, the Rockies have shown that they have an inability to get the job done against the National League West. Plain and simple. Just that is the nature of the beast there. But the Rockies were successful against the Pirates in a pretty crazy series. We'll see what the difference is there in Pittsburgh, and Skeens got roughed up a little bit. We'll see maybe if that might be a sign of what's going on here in the back part of the season for him. And then up next for the Rockies, you got Houston, Chicago, San Francisco. All 3 of those, I don't even, again, another situation. I'm looking at 9 games here. I'm thinking 2 wins in this as well. San Francisco, a team that is struggling mightily right now, a team that has had a lot of issues, but it's San Francisco playing against the Rockies. And Houston's a good team. You're playing in Houston as well, so that's a road series for the Rockies. And the Cubs, they might not have been as strong coming out the gate here in the second half as they'd like, but it's still a team that is very much in a position to do some damage. But the good news about this Chicago, San Francisco, and San Diego stretch here that leads to the end of August through the beginning of September, all home games. So we'll see what that means. But San Diego certainly playing better ball, certainly trying to, at this point, when they see the Rockies here, really establish themselves where they're at in the division, at the division race at that point, whether it might be, at the top or trying to fight back into getting that top spot. As of recording, I believe the Padres are still in the lead or at least tied for that. So you get that long homestand, the last real long major homestand of the year, because there is one smaller one, 2 series there where maybe the Rockies have a chance, but you go on the road to LA and you go on the road to San Diego in the middle of September. And I don't think it's crazy to say that the Rockies only win 1 of the games there, maybe 2 out of the 7 games that are being played in California. Again, you're talking about an LA Dodgers team that's going to be wanting to sharpen its claws heading into the postseason. And you're talking about a Padres team. Time and time again, we've talked about how the Padres at any point can't afford to lose to the Rockies. You have to be a team that beats the Rockies, and that's going to be the reason that can help you win the division, help you get that better wild card position. And the Padres aren't going to be in a position where they're going to be trying to drop, where they're dropping games to the Rockies here at home, where we know the Rockies went earlier in the season and got absolutely dominated here. The big question with the 10 wins for the Rockies is you got to play against the National League West. You got these series at home against Arizona and LA. You got another series against you have a situation here from September 1st until September 14th. You're only playing the National League West. And the National League West has dominated the Colorado Rockies. So how do you respond? Doesn't home, away, it's a whole stretch. The opening to the last month of the season here for the young Rockies team is going to go up against the National League West. So to get those 10 wins, to avoid being the worst team ever, you have to perform against these teams. You have to perform against a very solid division, even if it is the struggling Diamondbacks and the struggling Giants. These teams are still teams that have had a history of beating your butt, and you have to go out and do it both on the road and at home. And in game 1 here of Arizona, they continue to remind you that we are your daddy. And it's another firm regular season win for regular season series win for the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2025. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. You can find us also on Locked On MLB Game Night, where they cover every game each night, and Locked On MLB. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and Locked On MLB Game Night. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.